Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Idahoan Show. Except this is not really a regular episode of the Idahoan Show. The Idahoan Show is my hobby. I make videos about projects that I've done and really anything that interests me. Today, though, I've actually got a business proposal for manufacturing companies that might be interested and might be seeing this on YouTube. And the way this idea came to me was I recently was watching a video on InRange TV where Ian McCullum and Carl Casarda reviewed a Laugo Alien. Now, the Laugo Alien is a race-built 9mm pistol. It's designed for very rapid, accurate shooting. And there's a lot of hype surrounding this particular gun. It has the reputation of being just in a whole class by itself in terms of its accuracy and controllability. Now, if you're familiar with Ian and Carl and the videos that they produce, these gentlemen have absolutely no qualms about bucking popular opinion or debunking hype. And so I thought it was quite interesting that after they had a chance to get their hands on one of these alien pistols and do some shooting with it, their takeaway was that in terms of its controllability, the gun really does live up to the hype. Now, the caveat is that it is a $5,000 pistol, which puts it well out of the accessible price range of your typical working-class American shooting enthusiast. And Ian and Carl had actually asked the company representatives there at SHOT Show whether the company was ever planning to introduce a more budget-friendly, a more accessible model of the gun, and the company basically said no. So they concluded their video by sort of insinuating that some American gun manufacturer ought to make a cheaper version, a competitor to the Alien, at a more reasonable price point. Now, I think that's a great idea in principle, but it might be difficult to pull off in practice, because developing a real competitor to the Alien would require a significant amount of research and development up front, and then a great deal of capital to put it effectively into production. And while small startup companies might be able to do a lot of the initial R&D, they'd probably choke on production, because it's hard for a small startup to raise enough capital for a project like that. Meanwhile, established manufacturing companies that might have the resources to put something like that into production tend to be hesitant to divert engineering resources away from their existing, established, profitable product lines to take on revolutionary R&D projects when they could have those engineers making incremental, evolutionary improvements to products that they know are going to be profitable, as opposed to something that might be perceived as higher risk. So what I would propose is somewhat of a compromise between those two extremes. I am a freelance inventor, and I believe I could do most of the initial R&D on this project myself. I'd like to partner with a manufacturing company that would be able to put it into production. Now, just to be clear, I am not proposing to copy or reverse engineer the Alien pistol. Instead, it seems to me that the controllability of the Laugo Alien derives mostly from three key design elements: the low bore axis, the relatively low reciprocating mass of the bolt or slide assembly, and the gas-delayed blowback operating system that facilitates the low mass of the reciprocating assembly. Now, none of those three elements are patented or otherwise protected. I mean, the gas-delayed blowback operating system has been around for 100 years. Similarly, the idea of keeping the bore axis low in order to minimize muzzle flip is not something that anybody owns. So what I would propose is to take those 3 design elements and implement them in a brand new design that I would develop from the ground up with an eye towards ease of manufacture and cost effectiveness, in hopes of developing a pistol that delivers the performance of the Laugo Alien with the price point of something like a 1911 or other readily accessible automatic pistol. Now, how would this partnership between me and a manufacturing company actually work? Well, as I said, I would do the initial R&D. I would do that work at my own facility here in Idaho. I have a computer with CAD software, so, I can do the initial modeling, design work, develop engineering sketches, develop other design documentation and so forth here in my home office. I also have access to some shop space with basic machine tools, so I can make any necessary mock-ups or do other testing that may be required to support the design effort. Once I've developed the design and finalized it, then I would submit a detailed design report to the company for eventual production. How long would it take me to get to that point of submitting the final design report? Well, off the top of my head, I'm going to estimate about 2 years from initial inception to, delivery of the final design document. But this is admittedly more ambitious than any project I have ever taken on or proposed before, so there's a lot of uncertainty in that figure. It might only be half that, maybe because I know it's ambitious, I'm building in more time than it would actually take, or perhaps I'm optimistic, maybe it would take longer than that. Now, how would I be compensated for my work? Well, I would propose to be compensated in 2 phases. First off, as I'm actively working on the R&D, developing the design, I would receive a flat monthly stipend of maybe $3,000 a month or something along those lines. The idea here is that gives me the resources to buy any necessary materials I might need for mock-ups and testing, and pay my bills so that I don't have to be working a side job in order to subsidize the design effort, and I can devote myself to the R&D more or less full-time. However, I would not become an employee of the company, so I'd just be paid a flat fee as a contractor. You're not paying benefits or anything like that. On top of that, you're not paying overhead to have me at your facility. So the cost during the development process would be less than half of what it would cost you to have one engineer working at it in your own facility, in-house. Then, once the design goes into production and the company starts making money on it, I would receive a royalty on the profits that are made. But because the company supported the initial design effort to some extent, I would be willing to settle for, say, half of the going rate of what the royalties that you'd pay if you were just leasing production rights from someone who'd done all the R&D on their own dollar. But can I deliver a refined, functional, final design? Well, I think so, but let me briefly go over my qualifications. For starters, I do have a master's degree in mechanical engineering from a fully accredited university. I spent about 6 years working in industry after college before I got out on my own. Of course, I've been tinkering with firearms for practically my entire life. I've built a number of firearms completely from scratch. Those scratch builds are all of my own design or original designs that I've come up with. You can find a lot of those documented in videos here on the Idahoan show. And then for the last 2 years, I've been devoting most of my working time to a muzzleloader development project. Here's one of our prototypes. This is a relatively simple design mechanically, but this is the first gun that I've taken from initial concept, not just through working prototype, but all the way through final production. So, not only did I come up with this design, I also designed the tooling and the production processes to manufacture it. Manufacture maybe is a strong word because this is a very small-scale, low-budget operation. We're limited to using manual machine tools, and so we're going to be producing these only in very small volumes. But it has still been a very educational project, going through the exercise of developing tooling, developing jigs for production, developing production procedures, or standardizing production procedures. So, this project really is kind of winding down. I mean, the design is done, most of the production procedures are in place, production is tentatively starting up, and those should be hitting the market, albeit in very small numbers, sometime later this spring. So I'm sort of looking at what's next for me as an inventor. And I think that, developing a competitor to the Laugo Alien would be definitely an ambitious project for me to take on. But it's a challenge that I would be interested in tackling if there's a manufacturing company out there who'd like to work with me on that. So, if you are a firearms manufacturing company that likes the sound of this proposal, please get in touch with me. I will leave some kind of contact information either in the description or overlay it on the video here. And if you're just a viewer who would like to see a competitor to the Alien on the market, then feel free to forward this video to your favorite firearms manufacturer. In any case, thank you for your time, and as always, thank you for watching the Idahoan Show.